This is Gigi Sabat, and you're listening to the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Tanya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Gigi. I'm really excited to be here.
Likewise, it's such an honor to be with you today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit more about you and where are you from, Tanya?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am originally a farm girl. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. My hometown had 38 people in it. So really, really tiny area. I ended up finishing out my college years at the University of Minnesota and then got a master's in Minneapolis as well and worked for 10 years in the public health area. Eventually, I took a leap of faith after 10 years. I kind of hit the top of my pay scale and I just couldn't really navigate my career further to kind of reach the I wanted more freedom and flexibility, but I also felt like the actual impact I was able to make was really, really bogged down. So I ended up navigating into more of a self employed entrepreneurial space. I tried a number of things. We owned a brick and mortar franchise while I still worked my full time career. Then I navigated through a network marketing company, a startup company, and then finally landed on doing marketing and education for an online wellness shopping club manufacturing company. And I started that in 2018. And that has been the thing that has really fit for me from an entrepreneurial perspective and able to help and really lead others as well. And I love it, especially in a very up and down economy. And as inflation takes hold here, it's just been an amazing opportunity to be able to make an impact and ride out the chaos with a little bit of stability and security.
I love it, and I love the energy. Very powerful. Now, tell us a little bit more about how you lead professionals to build 6 and 7-figure businesses.
Yep, absolutely. So, what I do is really help them monetize the online platform. Everything has gone the way of e commerce pretty much. And we especially saw this happen over the last few years, as COVID hit and all of the shopping, some of us were shopping online, but all of a sudden, especially in the US, people didn't have a choice. You had to shop online. So, it really pushed forward how comfortable people were with even ordering groceries and having them delivered to their door. So, whenever you can monetize regular everyday life, that is something that I really believe in and try to help everybody take advantage of that opportunity. So, especially for corporate professionals and people that have really, really busy lives, I strongly believe in systems and an opportunity that they can build, while they're still leading their full-time lives, building something to give them a little bit of that breathing room. And then hopefully someday, if they really want to, replace a career, replace, a partner's income or something like that. So what I do is I help with the systems and the strategies to make that possible while they're still doing the do and having to work in their full-time careers, to give them kind of the light on the other end of the tunnel.
Very powerful. Now, what message do you have for someone who just started a business and maybe they're thinking about just giving up?
The ups and downs are drastic in the entrepreneurial space. And you and your lifestyle is kind of on the line with every decision. Where when you work a corporate career, where you work an hourly job, you show up, you get paid. You don't show up, you don't get paid. And I think when I left corporate America in 2013, everybody thought I was crazy because there's so much stability there. I think the one thing that people are realizing lately is with all of the different layoffs and restructuring and everything, there's not a lot of stability there either. So I would just encourage everyone, and this is honestly for whether you're building a business or you are still in a corporate career, there are 2 things you need to do. Number 1, build your personal brand. Build your personal brand, which includes networking and building relationships. If you look across all of the different platforms, you'll see what my values are, what my vision is, who Tanya Hagre is. I'm not a talking head for any other brand or any other company. I use my online presence to really build my personal brand. So even if you work for a company, I think that's really, really important because your relationships are your future. They truly are. No matter what you're doing, your relationships are your future. So that personal brand is really, really important. The last thing, especially when you work for yourself and you're building something, your high's not too high, your high's not so high, and your low's not so low. You got to get yourself off the roller coaster because there are always ups and downs when it comes to business, and a lot of it will be beyond your control. So the people that make it are the people that have the mental grit to stick it out. So you just got to try to keep your emotions as level as you can and be very, very consistent with the daily activities. So build your personal brand, and highs not so high, lows not so low. Learn to master your emotions and your mindset.
That's very true. And now, what if someone is in their comfort zone? What message do you have for that particular individual?
There's no magic in the comfort zone typically. I think that people don't truly get to learn who and what they're capable of unless they're pushing themselves into that uncomfortable space of growth. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to manage who you surround yourself with. So if everybody around you is settling, and if you're talking about other people or what other people are doing more than you're talking about goals and what's next. And if you don't have those types of friendships around you, then get online, find some mentors to follow, or attend some events to really find those people that are movers and shakers to step out of your comfort zone and figure out how you can continue to grow instead of just settling. I think that it's sad. And that's the one thing that is the silver lining of the current economy and of inflation. We are going to have people that step out of their comfort zone just to make ends meet that discover they're phenomenal entrepreneurs. And they're like these undiscovered diamonds in the rough that have so much impact and so much to bring to the world that they've just been in their corporate careers because they've never thought outside of them and never had to. So I do think, unfortunately or fortunately, it will be the silver lining. We are going to have some folks that just, this will be the catalyst for some discoveries that we may have missed out on otherwise, because they all always were so secure in those corporate positions.
That's very true. Now, Tanya, what does leadership mean to you?
That's a good one. Leadership to me is very much about creating other leaders, not just gathering followers. So a true leader is humble and really a servant to helping others become leaders as well. And I think right now you see a lot of influencers and you see a lot of people that will make and create networks of followers where they are always the person in the limelight. They are always the one, you know, people are paying massive amounts of dollars for coaching programs and things like that. And I do think there's some very legit ones out there. But a true leader to me is someone that creates other leaders. They aren't always the one that's in the spotlight. And pretty soon, sometimes you look at a group or, a group in a space and you can't even tell who the exact leader is because there are so many people thriving in that space. And any single one of them could take the mic, lead, teach, educate, and help others succeed. And I think that's what true leadership is. You're making it almost so that you are unnecessary because you've helped other people discover their greatness and be independent. And I think that's what true leadership is.
That's very true. I agree 100%. Now, tell us a little bit more about the major challenges that you had to overcome in your life.
Well, we've had some pretty significant ones. Not to get super deep, but we don't have a ton of time. But there are a number of different things that were really, really challenging. One of those being we ended up finding an investor, which was a great story at some point about how you attract great things into your life. I found an investor. It took me 24 hours to find a major investor. And we purchased 3 different franchises, the license to open 3 different franchises. My husband and I kept our full-time positions and built one of those franchises out. And we started in 2008. I'm not sure if you guys remember that time frame, but the economy had all just started crashing. And with the business model we had, it was actually a video game store, and we took a lot of the used market was really where that business model thrived. However, at that point, by the end of 2009, when we sold a new video game, we would get it was typically sold for $58, but we paid $51 for the game itself. But what happens when a kiddo brings in $47 of games and he only pays a few dollars of difference in actual cash? You can't pay the bank and you can't pay a landlord in video game inventory, right? So it was a fascinating story and an experiment, but we ended up having to close in 2010. So I was 30 years old. We were over $1 million in debt. We had both kept working our full-time careers with our degrees, and we lost everything. I lost my rental property. I lost the business. I lost absolutely everything. And my husband's family had actually co-signed the business loan. So all going bankrupt did for us was get us out of a 10-year commercial lease, but we still had to entirely pay back the business loan. So I paid that off for another 9 years. It was $1,200 to $1,800 a month for 9 years for a business that didn't exist. It was crazy, Gigi. So it has taken a lot to climb back out of that hole and rebuild. And as an entrepreneur, my husband I always told him, I'm like, going bankrupt is worse than death to me. And now I don't feel that way anymore. I've worked on my money mindset a lot, but it was crushing. I felt like the biggest failure ever. And I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about the business process. I learned a lot about business cash flow that you cannot read in a book. But I'm glad I learned some of those lessons at 30, and really also did some reframing of a lot of things so that I could come back, in a decade later, be in a very different place mentally and be able to create from a different place as well.
That's right. And you didn't give up. You never gave up. So very powerful. Now, what message, what last words do you have for the audience, Tanya?
Last words I have for the audience. Right now, I think it's just important to be really careful about who and what you're listening to. Your mindset is your biggest asset, and it is what everything in your life rises and falls on. And one of my mottos is, you don't have to recreate the wheel, you just have to make it turn. And I 100% believe in that. And especially at the beginning of your entrepreneurial career, if you need a side something in order to make ends meet right now, just be very, very careful about who and what you're following, and make sure they can show you reports and real numbers. And if at any point they stop answering your questions, continue your search, because I think it's really, really important that people have a lot of transparency in what and how they make their money, especially when you're working in an online space. So ask them for a Zoom meeting, ask them for a meeting in person, and really get down to the nitty gritty and make sure they can show you the system and the results of their own work and the system that they have to offer to you as well. So with that, I guess I just want to reiterate, you don't have to recreate the wheel. You just have to make it turn. And the biggest way to make it turn is to find a great system and then consistently step outside of your comfort zone and build your relationships.
That's very true. And hello, Pamela. Pamela has joined us. She says, hi, ladies. Such an important conversation. Thank you. And thank you again for listening in, Pamela. It's such an honor to see you. And now, Tanya, where can the audience find you?
Well, I am on the majority of the platforms simply by my name. So it's Tanya Hagre, Tanya. Last name is Hagre. It's a very different spelling. That's why I'm easy to find, though. Hagre.com. And you can see me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm all of those spaces. At the bottom of my actual site, tanyahagre.com, I have a great little survey. It only goes to me. So if you want to drop your information in there and connect, I'd love to have a coffee, Zoom, or whatever, and get to know you better as well.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Tanya on her website. Again, that's Tanya, Hagre.com. And Tanya, thank you again for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me, Gigi. Have a great day. Bye-bye, everyone.